But now we turn to France for our next segment of guests. Create the atmosphere. Well, now in France we have our next three speakers. Our first French speaker tonight is the author of The Spirit of the Law, and was cited most frequently in the creation of the American Constitution in 1789. Please welcome Charles de Secondat, otherwise known as Baron De Montesquieu. May I get straight to the point, Mr. Montesquieu, and ask you specifically about your government philosophy this time? What is it?
I personally believe in a separation and distribution of power system.
Care to explain?
My country, France, needs to be separated into three styles of government: a leading aristocracy, the centralized monarchy, and the middle class who will check all of the others' power. Due to self-interest, as Mr. Smith mentioned, each group will strive to be the strongest, so each will be able to check the powers group, if you will. It works so that nobody is the strongest.
Mr. Montesquieu, might I interrupt you there and say that your philosophy was on the basis for the Constitution of the United States? Do you believe that the U.S. got your ideas correctly? Did they understand it?
Yes, the United States stayed very true to the three-power structure with their three-power government. Each branch has been keeping checks and balances for 221 years, and slavery, which I oppose, has been illegal for over 130. Very good governing system to the United States.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Montesquieu, and good evening. And I do believe your speech caught on very quickly on democratic countries. But my next guest is the author of Candide and La Dictionnaire Philosophique, and he was a comedian until turning to government. Please welcome François-Marie Alouette, otherwise known as Voltaire. Mr. Voltaire, might I ask you about your belief in government directly, as I did with Mr. Montesquieu?
Indeed, I mainly support the enlightened monarchies, and I do criticize democracy. However, I am not quick to despise them either. As long as the people keep making decisions and are educated, then democracy can work. But if the people are idiots, then the enlightened monarchy is the best fitting, because the leader can make all the important decisions for them.
Would your support of monarchies be the reason for your ties with Prussia and Frederick the Great, maybe?
Well, Frederick and I have argued about philosophy in the past, but not so heavily. He does do a fine job of ruling Prussia into seem that he is enlightened and makes strong decisions, and he has also helped Prussia become the economic power it is today.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Voltaire, for your appraisal of the Prussian leader, Frederick the Great. But now, our next guest on the show, the Swiss Calvinist and the author of Discourse on an Origin of Equality Among Men, and the Social Contract. Please welcome Mr. Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Mr. Rousseau, your major work discusses a social contract between people and government. Do you care to explain?
Indeed. The social contract does describe the relationship between the public and the government. The people should be allowed to make their own laws, and the government should be allowed to enforce the laws via the courts.
Does this involve any legislation?
No. Legislation is all wrong. The people need to make their own laws so that no representation gets in the way. Once a law is made, it is the government's job to enforce it so that the citizens have the power over the government.
Now, Mr. Rousseau, people question your credibility as a philosopher because you have had a harsh history running away from your home in Geneva and serving a number of odd jobs before becoming an author. You have even dropped off your own children at an orphanage. Would you explain that? Mr. Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Now we turn to women's views, as our last two guests are advocates of women's rights. we turn to England. We turn to England for our first women's rights speaker. She is the author of The Vindication of Rights of Women. Please welcome Mrs. Mary Wollstencraft. Now, Miss Wollstencraft, might I ask, what is it that you want for women?
I dream that women will be able to speak out for themselves and be voiced in government. Women have been oppressed by the patriarchy, and we must vindicate our rights, as I said in the title of my proposal.
And what is it that you believe about the patriarchy that you keep referring to?
All governments today are run by some sort of patriarchy. The men have been ruling the government for far too long. We have not been heard. Even yet, men have silenced women's voices and have stopped us from being educated and elected. I plan to put an end to this by the end of my life.
Mary Wollstencraft, everybody. Now I turn to French women's rights and talk about the author of the Declaration of Rights of Women for our French women's rights speaker. Please welcome Miss Olympe De Gouges. Wait a minute. I'm getting something here. Oh, my mistake. Please welcome Miss Olympe De Gouges' head. Miss De Gouges' head. Might I ask you about your view of women's rights and how they differ from that of Mary Wollstonecraft's?
Firstly, I am outraged specifically by the French Constitution, which at no point has concern for women's suffrage. Women should be at least allowed to vote if we cannot hold elected office. I criticize the Constitution for discerning women.
But wasn't that why you were beheaded in the French Revolutions of 1791?
Well, that's a nicer part of the monarchy. But women's rights protests should not go unheard. Women have been for centuries, and I'm tired of it. We are on the verge of the matriarchal breakthrough, and it will begin with women's suffrage rights.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Gouges. Anything else you'd like to add?
No. I'm just going to hide from the French Revolution.
Thank you and good night. Well, this has been another edition of World Spectrum. I hope that you understand the Enlightenment better and the effects of what these people had on the rest of the world. These ideas are spread throughout the entire world today in forms of different governments and different governing philosophies. And just remember that the ideas stretch all over the globe, even apart from Europe, even to the Americas. And well, that is it for World Spectrum tonight, and thank you for tuning in. This has been another edition of World Spectrum.
Psycho killer